Hi, this is Charles Hoskinson broadcasting live from warm, sunny Colorado. Always warm, always sunny, sometimes Colorado. Today is January 28th, 2023, and I'm making a video to talk a little bit about the architecture of Cardano because some questions have come up, and the internet's the internet, and it's important that people understand who we are, why we did what we did, and the legacy behind things. So I'm making a little bit of a whiteboard video. So let's share my screen. Wow, here we go. Okay. So the story begins back in 2016, 2017, when I wrote the Cardano essay, Why Cardano, basically outlining roughly the thought process of the design of Cardano. I introduced these two concepts, Cardano settlement layer and Cardano computation layer. And it's closely related to our sidechains concept. So basically, the idea is that SL is safe, it's deterministic, it is reliable, it's self-healing. Okay, it's very decentralized. It's upgradable. Okay, there's a lot of properties here that you care about. So we introduced concepts like the extended UTXO accounting model. We introduced things like Plutus plus DSLs, the Cardano native asset standard. Okay. And these give sufficient expressiveness to capture most of the DeFi, NFT, and custom user application space. So basically, for most of the things that a person would want to do, Cardano SL either is in the process of building that infrastructure or it has enough built-ins to be able to accommodate that. But the thing is that there are going to be circumstances and scenarios where people want to do things where our design choices here as an ecosystem are incompatible with theirs. Like they can shed the need of determinism and then you gain a bunch of benefits, but then you reduce your safety, reliability, and potentially your ability to reason about how the network behaves. You can remove some decentralization and get a lot more speed. You can sacrifice upgradability and you potentially can get bleeding edge capabilities. And you can have different failure modes that, again, give you different operating costs. So we knew this back in 2017. It's not a surprise to anybody. And so we introduced the idea of Cardano computation layer. And I kind of know this because I wrote this entire thing myself. And I explained various different things that one could do and what we're thinking about. And so the idea of Cardano CL, which has become basically our sidechain model, is that you'd have all these different computation layers, and they would have different ledger, network, transaction, consensus logic that has different design principles, but they would in some way be connected to Cardano. Now, there are some reasons why you'd want to do this. One is that you have different trade-offs. In our industry, we have a bunch of idiots that run around eating paint chips who seem to believe that there's a God protocol, a holy grail, where somebody has figured out perfection and every single thing is just amazing about it. And all you have to do is just drink from the waters of this God protocol and it's all going to be okay. Yeah, but the reality is that this just doesn't exist. You have different trade-offs that relate to the decentralization, reliability, the safety of the system, the upgradability of the system, the throughput of the system, and you make decisions with those trade-offs. So some of those trade-offs that are good for a stable, secure, long-term network may not necessarily be good for your business logic. So you have two choices. You can either say, when you live in Bitcoin land, basically what they say, fuck off. Okay, that's what the maxis do. They basically say there is only one truth, and if you deviate from it, you're the problem, not the product. And no matter what you're trying to do, none of that matters. And please go use a layer 2 that's centralized to solve the problem. We will never change the core protocol. That's what they say. Now, they're a little nicer. They use flowery language, but when you actually translate it, this is what you get. Okay, so that's one option. Another option is to say, hey, we're going to accommodate all of these things. Well, Polkadot does that through parachains. And Cardano does this through sidechains. Okay, we wrote a little blog post about it going back to history. All right here, published July 5th of 2022, introducing the Cardano EVM sidechain. And we have obviously lots of cool follow-ups, but we just kind of talk about the sidechain model, the kinds of things that we're doing with sidechains. But by no means is this an original new idea. This is something the industry as a whole has recognized as very important. So much so that people actually create blockchain toolkits. So, for example, right here's one that we created with Alex Chirpinoy, ScoreX. ScoreX2, and now it's part of the Hyperledger Foundation. It's working group. The modular blockchain framework. ScoreX2 is a modular blockchain framework in the Scala language, which allows free and limitless experimentation with a wide variety of designs. It's a complete rewrite of the original ScoreX framework, and the motivation is that you have compact functional code. It's modular. You have asynchronous networking. You have a nice JSON API. And basically what they do is they pull out the network, the transaction, and the consensus layers, and they allow you to plug them in. Okay, and they have also externalized the crypto into Scripto. You say, but Charles, has anybody used anything with ScoreX? Well, yes. Ergo, for example, has launched. Wave, for example, has launched, and several other projects from this. IBM created the Hyperledger Fabric framework. Okay, and Hyperledger Fabric is again a blockchain framework, and people use this blockchain framework to build things like Maersk and Walmart. And the most popular one right now appears to be Cosmos. So Cosmos allows you to write a custom blockchain, and you can iterate rapidly. Now, these different frameworks have trade-offs. They have different viewpoints. They have different languages. I believe this is written in Go. That's written in Scala, and can't recall what Cosmos is written in. I believe it's Go as well. I have to look into it. But in any event, there are different trade-offs with them. And basically, having a framework allows you to parameterize those chains to produce something. Now, did we build Cardano as a generic modular pluggable Haskell framework? Well, no. We built it as a safe, deterministic, reliable system that has a humongous emphasis on its ability to upgrade itself, preserve its decentralization, heal itself, and have some built-ins that basically enable an economy to be built on top of it, a world operating system, financial operating system. We wrote it in Haskell, not for developer accessibility, but wrote it in Haskell because we really cared a lot about these things. So it would be a catastrophically stupid idea to take what we have right here and say, let's go turn this thing into the next Fabric. Let's go turn this thing into the next Cosmos. Let's go take this thing and turn it into the next ScoreX. You can try. We can spend 18 to 24 months refactoring and rewriting the code and modularizing the code. Doesn't make Cardano itself any safer, any more reliable, and it doesn't make it any faster. It just makes it more accessible for people to create sidechains with that code base. But the vast majority of developers, are they going to opt for a Haskell sidechain and write that code? Well, some will. The most probably will not, especially when there already exists options. Some we built, some others built, that have years of track record behind them, large development ecosystems, beautiful SDKs, and are token free. Okay, there's no token here. This SDK does not require a token. This does not require a token. In other words, what that means is these are blank templates, blank slates that a person can use and attach to your system and custom parameterize. So let's talk about some people that are thinking about doing that. For example, we have World Mobile. And World Mobile, they've deployed some stuff on Cardano because they want the safety and the determinism, the reliability, the self-healing, the centralization, upgradability, all these kinds of things that we care about. Great. But you know what? They're a telecommunications network that involves governments. It involves trusted hardware. It involves spectrum and licensing. Okay. It involves high requirements for privacy. It involves massive throughput requirements. And there are certain things that Cardano can do very well for them. But when you start looking at all these different things, you start realizing that some custom infrastructure is required. Well, they could take Cardano and fork it and build a Cardano sidechain with Haskell, completely rewrite the ledger logic and all these other things and say, well, we introduced some centralization, some non-determinism and other things and completely violate all the design requirements. Or you can take a toolkit that's open source, okay, and you can put those trade-offs in and you can deploy that as a sidechain. Well, wait a minute, isn't third generation, remember I keep saying third generation cryptocurrency? Didn't we say the second pillar of third generation was interoperability? Yes, we said that. So wouldn't it make a lot of sense to take it, in their case, Cosmos, because it's a good toolkit, attach it to Cardano, and now this is a computation layer, and you have a bridge where value can go back and forth, and Cardano can provide the quorum for that sidechain, because these are just toolkits. They don't come with batteries included for governance. They don't come with batteries included for security. They don't come with any of that. They just come with infrastructure that's programmable. They could do the same with Fabric. They could do the same with Scorex. And we encourage people to do that because here's what happens. You start building an ecosystem of these things. Hopefully, hundreds of them. Now, why is this good for Cardano? Well, if you take a look at the staking reward curve over time, it has this continuous decline. Now, it takes 100 plus years for it to approach zero asymptotically, but the problem is that after a decade or so, most of your rewards decline considerably. Okay, so the area under the curve here in that first decade is considerably larger than over here. Well, what augments stake pool revenue and makes the system sustainable above and beyond transaction volume is that when you have a control layer, computation layer, these also pay staking rewards to SPOs plus the delegators. Okay. Why? Because the security of SL, the main chain powered by Ouroboros, gets pushed down to these layers. Doesn't come from another network. It doesn't come from another token. It comes from Cardano. Now, these chains are in partnership with Cardano, the main chain, so they have to pay. And they pay the only thing they can pay because they're not humans, they're not corporations, they're blockchains. They pay the tokens. So what happens over time is while the ADA rewards decline over a 100-year period, suddenly the stake pool operator, they get ADA plus all those other side chains inside the system. Okay, so they get a whole portfolio of rewards. So isn't it in our best interest then that we have a diverse ecosystem of different technology that's custom parameterized to the needs of each of these guys? They keep all their traffic on the side chain. They get the security of the main system and the reliability of the main system, the liquidity of the main system, the infrastructure of the main system. But then their concerns are parameterized there. We recognized that business model 5 years ago. It's written down right here in Y Cardano. Okay. Use Wayback Machine and see it. It's nothing new. It's something we've been talking about consistently since before Cardano launched. We built a sidechain, two of them actually, one in Scala with the Mamba sidechain as a case study. And then we also built a generic framework with Alex Chirpinoy called Scorex. And we're a member of the Hyperledger Foundation. And we talk to the Fabric people on a regular basis. And now we're starting to get real deep into Cosmos because there's a desire to attach that to Cardano. Now, what's extraordinary to me is that there are people over the internet say, well, this is evidence that Cardano is a failure because there exist dApps and ecosystems that require somehow you to do things off chain or in a different ecosystem. Well, guys, the future is multi-chain and the future is multi-infrastructure. Okay. You cannot get away from that. Why? Because there are trade-offs in a design, and the people who are going to win the future are the interoperable people, the people that support everything, the people that run infrastructure with many different things. And the more of this we have and the easier it is, eventually you wake up and you have 200 of these things, okay, and which certainly increases the network value of the system and the utility of the system. That's the point. That's the machine that's being constructed here. And it allows people to move from trustless to trusted infrastructure and back, especially when you look at traditional finance. We call it TradFi. They're regulated. Okay, they're regulated actors. And that means they're centralized until we can find a way to decentralize regulation. But sure, that's a hard one. Well, that means they have their own infrastructure requirements and they can't move everything to a blockchain. So what are we going to do? Be like Bitcoin and tell them to go fuck themselves and there's nothing for them? Go home, you're all wrong? Or do you build a system where they can do their thing here with their own logic and then benefit from our system? And we're in partnership with each other and there's mutual emergent value with each other. Telecommunications is a somewhat centralized entity. Why? Because you have nation states. Okay. You have monopolies. Some cases you have government run corporations that actually own and operate the spectrum. Now, we'd love to live in a world where everything is libertarian and decentralized, but that is the reality of telecommunications today. So what does this mean? It means that you have to have bespoke infrastructure to accommodate that reality, even if your intention is to fully decentralize, because you can't just go to a government and say, change your laws, change the way you operate things, privatize. You can't. If the intention is to wire up the world and connect the unconnected, you have to build bridges between the traditional world and the non-traditional world. It's the same if somebody wants to deal with TradFi and do security tokens. If they want to do traditional finance and they want to set up things like funds, they're regulated actors. What are you going to do? Just go and say, change all your laws to accommodate us? Well, that's the Bitcoin way. Or you can say, well, let's build bespoke infrastructure with those particular trade-offs. Should Cardano change itself because the US Treasury Department tells it to? Should Cardano change itself because the International Telecommunications Union tells it to? No. Why should we put unelected bureaucrats in charge of decentralized infrastructure? Well, the compromise solution is you allow people to build sidechains. And those sidechains have bespoke logic that corresponds to the needs of those regulated domains. of those transnational actors. And then you have decentralized infrastructure in partnership with it that preserves people's rights, like self-sovereign identity, okay? Your ownership of money, okay? Your privacy, all kinds of things that you can preserve because you have a blockchain guarantee for that. But then the other stuff, well, there's some things that you have to accommodate. You see, and that's what a partnership is about. That's what an adult ecosystem is about. That's what real trade-offs are about. And what ends up happening is a lack of understanding makes people just spew stuff. So it never ceases to amaze me the level of disinformation that flows through. But I figured we'd make a video here and talk a little bit about it because this is nothing new, and there's 6 years of discussion and history and us saying the exact same thing again and again and again and again, introducing these concepts again and again with things like Midnight and things like World Mobile. And then I just see a lot of news float through and comments float through saying, well, because someone's building a sidechain, it obviously means that Cardano is a failed project. No, it just means there are different design choices. And instead of trying to go and fundamentally change Cardano to accommodate the needs of an individual actor, which would be effectively centralization, you build extensibility so people can have their own domains to be able to succeed within. And then you create an economic model where every time this is done, everybody gets collective value from that. It's that simple. That's how you build things properly. And that's the Cardano way. I really hope in the future that people grow up in this industry and there's a great adulting in this industry. It's hard every day. When you say the same thing, you show all your work, you're completely honest with people, you publish your results for third-party independent review, all your code is open source, you go to exhaustive details to write blog posts, do videos, and communicate with people. And then the exact opposite is perceived, in some cases by mainstream news. And you just have to show up every day and just keep pushing through. It doesn't hurt us, but what it does do is it hurts the industry as a whole. Because what it does is it takes anyone who's professional, it takes anyone who actually has an intent to do something interesting, and they say, why would I want to get involved in something like that where I do good work and I just get criticized? And they say, grow a thicker skin. That's not the answer. It has nothing to do with the skin of any particular individual. It has to do with the fact of, do we want this to be the technology of the future? If we do, you don't set up landmines and burn people down. And if we do, you don't lie. Because when you do those things, what people do is they say, I don't want to be involved in that. And they leave and they go somewhere else, or they give all the power to the people who are currently involved. And in many cases, those aren't really good actors. So it's a crossroads that we're at. It's extraordinary to me that I was so excited about the announcement of Cosmos World Mobile because we're bringing two great ecosystems together. And these ecosystems are going to be mutually beneficial. They've done a great job spending years of their lives building great technology in a 200 plus blockchain ecosystem. It's open infrastructure, which means that we can absorb it. And that's the Darwinian nature and interoperable nature of cryptocurrencies. They make us better. And we make them better because this is the first side chain that's really going to have an awesome security model because of Ouroboros. So I got so excited about that. And to see a reception of, well, this just means Cardano's irreparably broken and can't do everything, and it's abandoning the ecosystem. It's just a mindset there. And it's one that maybe it's in Gen Z and it's percolated its way through and everybody's just perma cynical and everybody's perma dishonest. I don't know. But maybe I hope that elucidates a little bit more about what we've been doing, what we've been trying to accomplish. And I really do think that this is the way. We said there were 3 pillars to the third generation: scalability, interoperability, and sustainability/governance. Second is interoperability. How do you achieve interoperability unless you build bridges and sidechains? How do you achieve that? You just put everybody else out of business and you force your standards on them. I guess that's the Bitcoin way. I'm not exactly in the mood to embrace that one. They can have it. I'll go do something else in life, like raise bison. That's an empty, bereft well of any value. So maybe this way is the right way. So we'll keep chipping away at it. We'll keep building, and we're real excited to bring this technology into Cardano. We can't wait to see how many wonderful things come. And we love this network. And overall, I think that we've remained remarkably consistent in the vision and the approach, and that's auditable. You can just go back in history and look at documents written 6 years ago and compare what they said to where we're at today. And the only difference is they were saying we're going to do it. Now you're actually seeing us do it. And then people say it's over. Welcome to crypto.